At this stage, I want to raise a matter that is not, well, it is concerning the UK. In fact, it's significantly concerning the UK government. So I'm talking about Ukraine, the war between Ukraine and Russia. And just 3 days ago came the unbelievable news that Joe Biden, who has now been voted out as President of the United States, has granted permission for Zelensky to actually use the US supplied long range missiles for bombing Russian cities. That is bad enough. And then to add insult to injury, this is a time when Trump is trying to bring that war to a quick ending to save lives. It now looks as though we've got the British government who have approved Zelensky to use our Storm Shadow supplied long range missiles, which can be used to bomb Russian cities. The impact of this is that our government, our Labour government, and this will be Mr. Lammy who's representing us, has now, in one fell swoop, if this has actually been approved, they have rendered the United Kingdom a major target for Russia. And I was watching last night a translation of Putin's latest speech on YouTube. You won't see this on BBC, ITV or Sky. This was on YouTube, translated. And basically, he was responding to this news by declaring, if one British missile is used to bomb a Russian city, I will respond accordingly by targeting a British city. This escalation is the result of our so-called finest minds. They've been to the finest institutions in the United States, Harvard and Yale. In the UK, these are Oxford and Cambridge educated people, possibly Harrow, Eton educated in earlier years. These are supposed to be our best, our finest minds, and it beggars belief that they have taken now the USA and the Joe Biden and the UK. It looks like us, to be confirmed, it looks like the UK as well, under Starmer and Lammy, have taken us to the brink of World War III, involving the use of nuclear weapons. It is terrifying when you watch the real news and you hear Putin using the word nuclear weapons as a response. He's now downgraded what would qualify for a nuclear attack by Russia itself. It beggars belief what's going on. We've been let down badly, that's the understatement of the year, by Joe Biden and his neocon lunatics running the show in the United States. And we've got our own neocon lunatics in the UK in the Labour Party. And then when you look at what's going on, it's easy to understand, because I read somewhere 80% of the US Senate have stocks and shares in the military industrial complex in the United States. The dark shadow, the super elite. It is in their interest to have an ongoing war, because that's orders for military equipment worth billions and billions of dollars, from which ultimately they will be paid their dividend shares on the profits made from the mass murder of, as it stands now, 600,000 Ukrainian men aged 18 to 32. The flower, the youth of Ukraine has been destroyed, and that country will possibly never recover from that devastation. They've lost the flower of their youth. It's gone. And then you start digging into things, and pictures begin to emerge that are ever so predictable, coming back to the super elite, those in the know, those who are benefiting from these wars. And lo and behold, what name, what organisation do we have cropping up when you do a bit of digging? None other than BlackRock. And now it transpires that BlackRock, the world's biggest US-based investment organisation, their fingers in a lot of pies, it looks as though, if the rumours are to be believed, that they have now bought up a third of all Ukrainian farmland. Now, I read reports denying this. Oh, that's not possible. The Ukrainian constitution will not allow that to happen. The Ukrainian constitution states that only Ukrainians can own that farmland. Does the mass media think we are stupid? Because when you have an organisation such as BlackRock, they have the expertise, they have the money to access the Ukrainian market, to target the key people, the movers and the shakers, to set up companies in Ukraine in the names of these Ukrainian oligarchs or movers and shakers, pay them hundreds of millions of dollars, and effectively those companies set up in Ukraine will ultimately be owned by BlackRock, which means effectively they will. I think the target is to buy up half of all Ukrainian farmland. This is the way BlackRock operates. This is the way the super elite operate. And this is the way the dark state operates. It's all these events going on behind the scenes that are hardly ever reported. And if anybody does report it, they are accused of being sensationalist. And to elaborate on this story of farmland, just look at what's happened in the UK. Rachel Reeves is at it again. In the budget, she went big time for the small family farmers who this nation depend on for a large portion of their food. And those local farmers, family farmers, for generation after generation, these are the farmers who do take care of the animals. The cattle's going to get slaughtered at some stage, but at least they get to live out in the fields and sample some form of life before they're slaughtered for our benefit. And on that point, I'm moving more towards becoming a vegetarian myself. But look at what happened here. A number of months ago, Bill Gates, none other than Bill Gates, one of the world's wealthiest men, he's been buying up a lot of the farmland in the United States. Small family farmers getting into financial trouble because of the markets, being forced out of business, and Bill Gates, like a vulture, descends from a great height and snaps them up. Bill Gates had a meeting with Starmer before the budget, and it's very interesting, isn't it, having mentioned what was going on with BlackRock in Ukraine, what Bill Gates has been doing in the USA that's basically unreported by the mainstream national media. Bill Gates had a meeting with Starmer, possibly Rachel Reeves, and isn't it strange how we're taking exactly the same route as the United States, whereby government manoeuvres, taxes, the new tax imposed by Rachel Reeves, which means that no longer can the hereditary situation of the farm being passed down from family to family within the family, and they keep that connection, that line going, that expertise of the family knowing what they're doing, how to farm, maintained. They're now targeted by the Labour government, Rachel Reeves, whereby that farmland, the farm, can no longer be passed on to the children who know what they're doing because they were brought up as farmers. They now are forced to pay a 20% tax on the farmland they will inherit. And that will force many of our local farmers out of business because they're already operating on small margins. Contrary to what you're told, the big margins aren't being made by the farmers. The big margins are being made by the supermarket chains, who have tremendous negotiation powers, and I know for a fact they screw the farmers into the ground and give them minuscule margins to operate on. And even then, that's not enough, because with Bill Gates now possibly involved in persuading Rachel Reeves to target our small farmers, as they did in the USA, is the situation being cleared for super wealthy people like Bill Gates and BlackRock to start buying up our British agricultural farmland? This is what could come next. But again, it's hardly ever mentioned or identified as a possible problem on national media. Yes, the story's been reported about what's happening with the taxes, the farmers, but it's not digging deeper to ask the question, what is going on here at a more profound level? You realise these issues are never touched upon. But that's what's going on. This will be interesting to see how this now pans out. It's not interesting, in fact, it's a tragedy what is going to happen to our fantastic farmers, who, I repeat, are operating on very small margins, and they work damned hard to produce our food. If those farms end up going over to the big conglomerates, then look at that, what that could mean. Go back to the States, look at their food. They've got what the Kennedy RFK has just been appointed by Trump to start investigating, to start pursuing the big drug pharma and the big food producers in whatever it is they're pumping into the livestock, which is not good for the health of the nation. That happens in the United States. It's going to be pursued, thank God, under Trump and RFK Kennedy. That could come our way and we'll be too slow to react to it. I could only see any questions being really asked if Farage came to power, who is the nearest thing that we've got to Trump. And I've mentioned Trump and Farage several times. Are they perfect? No, they're not perfect. But they're a damn sight better in the States than that truly incompetent, useless Kamala Harris. And over here, Farage is infinitely better than Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves, who are currently destroying our economy. There will be no growth under the Labour Party. They're destroying everything. And basically, at the end of the day, they don't give a damn because they are globalists, internationalists, as was Tony Blair. And don't you all think it's strange how once these prime ministers, once these presidents leave office, isn't it somewhat odd how they then subsequently become wealthy beyond belief? Obama, with something like 150 million US dollars. Tony Blair, with something like 60 million pounds. Where does this wealth come from? Have they been bought off by the dark side, dark forces that really run the show, and they're just the little puppets being manipulated? Because that really is what is going on. Anyway, on that, we will be fortunate, I think, if we see this Christmas, if we've not been blown to Kingdom Come, with the now approved usage of the American supplied long-range missiles and the UK Storm Shadow long-range supplied missiles. The news to any Brits watching this is if that turns out to be true, we are now a major target for any Russian response. And on that, as I say, I hope we make it to Christmas. I could go into now how the whole thing unfolded and started in Ukraine, but it would take us over an hour to discuss it now. But suffice to say, in 2014, when the revolution first occurred in Ukraine, it was all initiated by the USA, by Hillary Clinton was involved in it, and I think it's Victoria Nuland was involved in it. They wanted to overthrow a democratically elected Ukrainian government who weren't perfect, but they had been democratically elected. The United States neocons wanted a government in power that was more favourable to the USA, and it was Victoria Nuland who'd actually already, before the revolution happened, decided who the government was going to be, who the members of the cabinet would be. They'd already selected them. This is not democracy. This is not US-style democracy. This was a coup d'etat. It was initiated and orchestrated by the neocons in the United States, sticking their nose into business that's not their business, and they effectively overthrew a legitimate government. And to summarise this, Putin had said all along, I do not want Ukraine to join NATO. And Zelensky was going to actually sign the Minsk Accord agreeing to that requirement. Until Tony Blair and Boris Johnson were sent by Joe Biden to Ukraine to inform Zelensky, who was at the point of signing the agreement, he couldn't do it. He had to fight against the Russians, and any ensuing war would be totally funded, financed and supported by the USA and UK government, regardless of cost. And that, in a nutshell, is how the Ukraine war against Russia was started. The result being 600,000 Ukrainian men aged 18 to 32 have been slaughtered. All slaughtered at the altar of profit of the military-industrial complex in the United States and in the UK. And with that parting message, I wish you all a Merry Christmas, if we make it to Christmas. Let's hope so. All right, that's it.